All right, a warm welcome back to the elections coverage studios. It's the verdict. And before we took the break, we were talking about the results released so far and what, if anything, they mean, if they establish some kind of pattern, if they don't, are they surprising, and so on. But now we've got fresh perspective with a fresh set of guests.
That's right.
You want to do the honors, AJ?
Yes, we have our Channels TV elections consultant, Juliet Benitie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
and
you.
We have the transformational leadership expert as well. This should be interesting. Olugbenle. Thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're listening and watching.
Yes,
what do you think?
Okay, a lot of attention has been given to the presidential, but I'm of the opinion that in governance, beyond the presidential or the executive, we should also be looking at the legislative arm. And there's been quite a bit of surprises. And I honestly think all the fringe parties should have really targeted the legislative houses. If we had more people making the laws, I think I recall Professor Yemi Oshibajo saying one time that they've not been able to successfully conclude any of the corrupt cases because the legislative environment, the legal environment is just not there. So why is everybody so bent on this executive and it's a do-or-die matter? Why don't we also look at the legislative arm and see if we can populate it with what we call value-based, no-excuse leaders, and then we can say we're getting somewhere at the end of the day.
Well, I don't know. Well, you know, there were attempts for them to have a coalition. I don't know how it ended. Obviously, it didn't end in them actually getting it. But a lot of them will say, well, they have something to offer, so why can't they, you know? And then when you look at the legislative race, as you were talking about, there are new entrants, and yes, we are seeing some upsets. So if someone feels, I can be president, why not?
Okay, there's only space for one president every 4-year cycle. Now, with 71 parties, so many presidential candidates, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I think it's coming from this African mindset of monarchy. Africans are still monarchical in their orientation. So it's a winner takes it all. No, true governance is shared. And until we can begin to understand that I don't need to be number one to participate in governance, then we're not going anywhere. Okay. And I think the results do show for it. All the fringe parties, one here, two there.
They won't be happy to be called fringe parties.
Well, that's
or
what
the others, or outsiders. They don't really have to.
I'm only using words that are out there.
The question I would like to ask is, what would you say is the cause of this seeming trend, as in focusing on two parties? Would you say the Nigerian electorate as so have been molded into, it's like they've been put in a mold? Or is it a question of no clear ideology coming from these other parties, no clear position so that the Nigerians can say, okay, this is this, this is that, this is that?
Okay. Let me use a little story that I got from a senior friend. She was bidding for a job, and the law is that there must be more than one person bidding for the job. So here she goes, and they said to her, okay, I think you have the job, but could you just create other so-called bids and vary it in such a way that you become the winner? So I really look at the public space as being that there is a one party, but for the sake of opposition, and there is no space for me, we create a second. And if you go back to IBB, a little to the right, a little to the left, so we created NRC and we created SDP, and I think that has transitioned into what we are seeing today. But I do honestly want to recommend that hereafter, we should all begin to look at a credible third force. It's a must that we must do once this is over.
Back to that thing, pre-election, third force. Mrs. Benitie, do you agree with him that, from what he's saying, he implies that this multiple parties were seemingly created by one party so that there appears to be opposition in our polity?
You mean all the rest of the parties actually is one party?
It appears as if it's one party.
Not done consciously.
Not done consciously.
It evolved, and it's comfortable to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I totally agree with that, but what I saw also, because I had friends of mine running, and I said to them very clearly, I said, you need to understand the demography, and the philosophy of a nation in which you exist. That is, well, leadership requires you to do that mapping, to recognize that a nation like Nigeria is not ready to make just a leap and trust into an unknown zone. Also knowing that the structures required for political election in Nigeria is a little bit different. I said to some of them, I said, you can't appear few months or a year into an election and you expect to win. For me, I said to some of them that I think you have an opportunity to showcase your capacity, but to look for your alliances, so that peradventure you will have an opportunity of expression somewhere within that political space. However, we recognize that APC and PDP is not the only parties that have the solution. But over time, they have created structures into the grassroots and even created almost like a movement and an ideology within themselves that this is who we are capable, we're experienced. But that doesn't mean the fact. But if you are not organized as they are organized, like most of them, I told them, come together. But like he said, that sense of the feudal spirit that is still a philosophy of I have to be the one reigning. I actually told one, can you just step down from your presidency and allow and compete amongst yourself?
But you're talking to somebody who has probably put in time, money, effort.
No, this was towards the beginning.
Okay.
Towards the beginning of the takeoff. The movement, I saw that there was multiple parties. And everybody running that, I feel I'm the one, I feel I'm the one. I said, leadership does not always say that you must be at the forefront to be the player. That ideology is also quack, you know. We think, oh, if I'm not number one, I can't lead. But you can do several levels of leadership by creating a coalition and bringing an ideology that sells to the public space. Because, for example, if you, Ijoma, has a grassroots in the east, and I'm partnering with maybe Ladi that has grassroots in the west, and I'm coming in from Niger Delta, and I have a little bit of grassroots. By the time we bring our grassroots capacity into play, the political invasion will be easier.
So I don't have grassroots.
Sorry, Auntie.
Okay, the other time we give you grassroots at the central, and we give him the grassroots at the north. So no matter what you think, politics all over the world is about the grassroots upward. If you don't have that structural base, normally there are two things I tell people. Either you are known about your political prowess and capacity to lead and people celebrate you as a champion, or you're a champion somewhere and you're just transmitting your championship to another zone. Like a Trump into a political setup has already been known, and he has done his structure on the ground. He has always been a sponsor and a boy in the political environment. But here you are, you have never had that kind of space, opportunity. Normally, political parties and individuals, like a Shore story, could have made an inroad if probably he started much, much earlier. But you, first of all, must create a movement, an ideology, something that you are selling, that even the market woman can interpret. But since you are predominantly people who are illiterate politically, when I say politically now, I don't, some of them are educated in many ways, but we have a lot of high illiteracy, children out of school. You cannot sell something that people don't understand and you want them to buy it.
Okay.
So they buy, Nigeria is still buying it's still, let me use the word, barakbo.
For viewers who do not understand
yes,
what barakbo
Group
means.
solidarity.
Group
solidarity. I
solidarity.
was going to say, I know Ijoma, she's a friend, so let's stay together. So even in this election, you can see that franchise of I'm his. So it's playing, because now you have two northern leaders who are now showing us I'm his. So it depends who are backing them that will take them to the finish line.
And I'm happy you referenced the results today, because that's what we're actually looking at as well. Looking at the way it is playing out now, I mean, we're watching our democracy play out live. Is this too slow for you? Because INEC will make the argument that, well, they have to be deliberate so that nobody comes up to say, you know, this is not what it is. But it's about almost 5 o'clock, and we have just 5 results. We have 36 states, and we're still at it. Is this too slow for you?
I mean, it's just too slow for me. I'm actually growing impatient, and people are calling me, what's happening, what happened. I say, I'm not INEC, I don't even work for INEC. You see me on channels, doesn't mean I'm INEC connected. But I feel, I had a challenge with INEC that I wanted to ask INEC this peculiar question, that even though the bill did not allow for electronic voting, what was the opportunity to expand certain operational issues. Remember I told you about operations. I said I give INEC preparation. You are prepared for it. Of course, at the operational level, we saw the failure, the massive failure in operation, polls not being open on time. And you know, the ideology of the fact that the poll does not open on time, people are losing time for election, coming to the poll before it ends and all that. But the crisis INEC is having, you know, in America, as the elections are going, for example, a network like Channels that is broad would have been, Etiosa is going blue. Yaba is going red. There will be that consistent announcement, and there's a build-up to the finality. But to cap, I have a sense of trouble, wondering why the capping of vote announcement is happening. Somebody wins in X local government. Let us know that at least somebody has won there. Keep jubilating. Or then I now looked at it this morning. I said maybe they don't want the fight. Maybe is it because we like fighting for position, so they're trying to cover it for security reasons. I was trying to interpret why the cap. For example, somebody is supposed to be coming from Akwa Ibom has not arrived at Abuja. What are they still counting? I'm asking, what are they still counting in Kano? What are they still counting here? So that part of operational issues for INEC is opening doors for me to say, this INEC needs a total overhaul. I don't really blame Professor Mahmoud, the chairman. This morning I was thinking about it. Said I sense that he really wants to do the right thing and have a legacy to his name, but the parameters and the structures around him is stifling. Up to midnight, I was awake till 3 a.m., 2 a.m. People were calling. I'm hearing what is happening in Zamfara. I'm hearing what I said. Everybody cool down. Let INEC do their jobs. But if this announcement were coming in the bits and pieces, as is being done and signed by party agents, because the key here, all party agents will agree to an X result. So if party agent A, B, and C say, 3,000 out of whatever, Mr. Jack won. Mr. Jack, Etiosa just went APC. Yaba just went PDP. This just went ANN. That just went. Then there is, people will be joyous that, But when you look at Facebook, Facebook yesterday was a mess. This person is winning. Oh no, this person lost.
Well, remember the INEC chairman said winning, okay, maybe his unit.
His own unit, you know. So I feel that in the next 4 years, we can't do this anymore. And it's also too capital intensive to keep a body like INEC. Is there another way to decentralize them into the local government areas where we can have these things every 4 years, and we have people who are coming in, who are registered experts, verifiable, that they will not steal the election. And, they won't know. So I don't think we are there yet. But again, one thing that surprised me about this election this year is that it's low. The numbers are coming out low.
Even though we have a higher number of
PVC collected, the numbers are quite low. So I'm wondering, is it this one that Mahmoud is sitting down very well and determining that
let me take this back
A is A and B is B?
Mr. Olugbenle, yes. Why do you think the numbers are low?
Tough one here. A number of people could feel it's already a selection. There's really no election. So why bother? Also, the 1 week switch, the 1 week postponement, could have altered the calendar of a number of people, and they are not really able to overcome the challenges. I mean, a number of people put cars on the road, paid transport fare, lowered the flight tickets, just to make a number of people that were discouraged overcome their discouragement. But if it's a case of time at work and it's not doable, it's just not doable. But I think largely at the end of the day, if I look around me, the people I've asked, why didn't you vote? A number of them said the PVCs want the transmission from the temporary voter card to the permanent didn't really work. Some who really wanted to vote got to the polling unit and it was not their polling unit. They tried 1 or 2 and it wasn't done. So I probably would say it's a case of operational issues on the individual part and disinterest, large disinterest. Also, I think I need to add this, not knowing who to vote for.
Out of 71 people.
Okay, if I were to use myself as an example, and I probably represent maybe just 100,000 or 500,000 people out there, but I do know I have 2 or 3, 4 people who told me that they were also looking for who to vote for.
When you say looking for who to vote for, is it a question of looking for certain qualities in the people who are out there contesting, or is it a question of ideology of the party in which they're running?
If you look at national anthem, it talks about a Nigeria that attains a lofty height. From 3 elections back, I posted on Facebook, are we going to have a different governance or same of same? I believe we are still doing same of same. A lot of things have been achieved by this government, no doubt, but in the 21st century, if we compare these achievements to potential, are we really there? Do we compare ourselves with ourselves, or we compare ourselves with potential? This nation was founded or maybe liberated by people in their 20s, 30s, early 40s. 50 years down the line, we are running the country with people average age 60, 65. In a digital world, do they have the energy? Do they have the more modern outlook? So a number of us looked at all of that and said, you know what, we really, really thank you, fathers, for what you've done. But honestly speaking, this last leg, where nobody's waiting for nobody, you don't really meet up. And I guess that's where a number of people stand.
Let me take you back to the point you both made about how can we make this simpler, how can we make it faster? The whole idea that it's coming out too slowly. Someone had suggested that, you know, elsewhere they decentralize it, they allow it to happen at states and so on. But our experience, after all, we do have state independent electoral commissions. One is not aware of any state where the state independent electoral commission returns results that are substantially different or not in tune with the ruling party of that state, which brings up the question of trust. Can we really trust these institutions, even if we were to agree that the process should be decentralized?
Truth of the matter is that no matter how excellent a system is, the weakest link is still the human component. Until we all agree amongst ourselves that we really want a new Nigeria, or we want to move forward from where we are, we want to leapfrog, we want to do excellent things, we want to achieve this lofty height, we will not be the person that can do the job. We've spoken about transformational leadership. What is transformational leadership? You want to change yourself. You want to become the model. You want to become the ideal. And then you work on people's values and people's perceptions. So if we are going to get anywhere, we must start with the human component, which is where human capital development comes in, which is where attitudinal shift comes in.
But how do you do that in a system where, as you speak today, there are 13 million children out of school?
Yes.
That figure has remained fairly constant over the last couple of years, which means that it's not just that they are out of school, they are highly unlikely to get an education. And then amongst those who are already around, there are a large number who are illiterate completely, and they are not of school age. How do you do this kind of thing with such a large number of people in various parts of the country with this background?
Maybe she may also add to that, but let me start by saying Margaret Mead, she's an anthropologist. She says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that can change the world. Break that down. Small group. Small group. What qualifies them, or what are their characteristics? Thoughtful. What does that mean? Strategic. Committed. Thoughtful and committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that has changed the world. Let's ask ourselves, the present system we are operating, How many are in the think tank? How many are the drivers? How many really own the system? In any system, no matter how big, how come in South Africa, less than 1 million people were dictating the lot of millions of other people? It's always a few people that give direction, which is why we try to encourage the elites in Nigeria to step up and in our own selfish, enlightened self-interest, do good. So back to your question, how do you do this? A few people who really want to see the new Nigeria, the few compatriots that Nigeria is talking about, should be the one rising up and doing what needs to be done. We also must realize that governance is not an event. It's a chain of continuing activities. Election cannot be a big event. It's not a big bowl. There are things that started before the date, and there are things that will follow. This is the time where we need to gradually begin to talk to our people, educate our people, change the mindset of our people, and evolve over time. The challenge we have right now is that time is going, and we are not doing what we need to do. It's a race against time. If it's going to take us 1,000 years to get there, the earlier we start, the better. Right now, we're just going around in circles and hoping that one day we will wake up and we'll have a new Nigeria.
Let me add this before Mrs. Benitie weighs in. By its very, people say that by its very nature, so our previous guest had made mention of the fact that by its very nature, democracy is slow because it requires building of consensus around anything. And that until you're able to persuade the majority, you're not going to get very far. I'm talking about that coming from the point where you said a small group. There's that small group against the tyranny of the majority. All right. How do you place that? Because you talked about 65, 70-year-olds now running things. They are democratically elected by the majority of those who vote, which is the system we have in place. How do you get around things like that?
That's for her.
Both of you. I mean, you're both in transformational leadership.
Okay, like what he said about a small committed people, I think we need to recognize two things. Like when I look at the Nigerian quagmire, as it were, the issues that have happened from the 60s that had downgraded and destroyed our society, we have the fundamental issues that has happened. For example, the elite class of Nigeria, and I'm sorry, elite class, I think also I'm the elite class because I fall into it. Based on the test, we have one elite class test, we fall into it maybe so percent down, is that the level of self-centeredness within the elite class for survivor has also destroyed the society. But you see, this also is stemming from 3 levels of failure. There are 3 levels of failure that if we must address Nigerians, we must address these 3 levels of failure. The number 1 failure is education. The destruction of the education system, of not paying attention to education by adding civic studies and nation-building patriotism, as it were, because within the framework of our national anthem, say, I rise to compatriot, Nigerians call obey. And like I always say in the Institute, it is not a Yoruba call obey, it's not an Igbo call obey, it is not an Ibibio call obey, it is the Nigerians call. So the